We talk about colonizing space of Mars, and some people ask, how can we be serious? Humans are not native to Mars, we're native to the Earth. Well, in a very real sense, humans are not native to the Earth. We're native to Africa, we're native to Kenya. That is where we originated. We're a tropical species. That's why we have these long, thin arms and no fur. We're not adapted to life in the temperate zone. We're certainly not adapted to life in Iceland.
Til skamms tíma voru Íslendingar þessu sammála. Í landi sínu voru þeir ekki í essinu sínu. Þeir þrifust aðeins í þeim hluta þess sem helst var í ætt við Afríku. Stærsta hluta landsins létu þeir hins vegar tröllum, útilegumönnum, draugum og öðrum óvættum eftir. Þessi minnisvarði í miðri auðninni vekur við fyrstu sín frekar upp hugrenningar heimsóknir geimvera en ferða og ævintýra frá jarðarbúa. Samt hann einungis til merkis að innfæddir fundu land sitt á ný á síðustu öld og heiðruðu með honum forseta ferðafélagsins. Vörðunum hefur fjölgað og grjótið orðið kunnuglegra og þokkafyllra. Það gæti jafnvel þjónað þeim tilgangi að verða stökkpallur til næsta áfangastaðar mannkyns.
To me, often I think that astronomy and space exploration is really like waking up one day and finding that you're living on an island, a desert island out in the middle of the ocean. And the first thing you do after you wake up on this day is you start looking around the island to see what's there that you can utilize. Can you survive on this island? Can you build a little house? Can you find water? And we've done that. And we, in fact, are living on an island. We're living on the Earth, which is an island in space, and we've found our water and our resources. But if you're living on this desert island out in the middle of the ocean, you start looking off on the horizon and you see other islands, and you wonder what's there, and you start building boats, and you try to get out there, and are there other people, and are there other resources, and can you find new materials to work with, and so forth. And that's the stage we're at now. We can look out from our island in space and we see other islands out there in space. And why aren't we going out there? That's the next step for us.
Þegar ekkert blasti við framundan nema ballarhafið, leit Grikkinn Píþeas, einn fremsti sæfari fyrir tíma, til stærstu eyjunnar sem blasti við á himninum, tunglsins. Píþeas fyrsti maðurinn sem vitaðir til að hafi gert sig grein fyrir áhrifum þess á sjávarföll. Árið 340 fyrir Krist fór hann í langferð á háaloft heimsins, norðurslóðir. Sú sigling bar hann að ströndum dularfullrar eyju þar sem sólin settist ekki og höfuðskepnurnar tóku sífelldum hamskiptum. Ljós, sjór, eldur, ís og loft virtust renna saman í frumefnasúpu, eins konar legvatn alheimsins. Á þessum hjara veraldar hlutu frumefnin að eiga upptök sín. Píþeas sá að lengra varð ekki komist og nefndi landið Ultima Thule. Rúmum 2000 árum síðar erum við að nálgast annan heim í órafjarlægð sem hugsanlega býr yfir vísbendingum upphaf lífsins. Dularfyllsta eylandið í okkar sólkerfi Títan, fylginautur Satúrnusar. Þar grunar menn að fljóti í 180 gráðu frosti legvatnið sem lífið á jörðunni hrærðist í árdaga.
Titan has a lot of similarities to the early Earth, and certainly it's sort of the edge of the type of worlds that you would want to go to and have any hope of finding Earth-like conditions. Now, the atmosphere on Titan is mostly nitrogen with some methane, a very different type of atmosphere than we have on the Earth today, but perhaps very similar to the way the Earth was at its formation. We're actually landing in a very interesting place, it turns out, right on the edge of something that's a big bright spot on the surface of Titan, close to the size of Australia. And we're landing near the shore, if you like, of this bright spot. Now, I call it a shore, but we don't really know that there's liquid around it. It's just dark and bright. We think perhaps the bright areas are a tall mountainous region on Titan, and either there's clouds that are always on these mountains that make it look bright from a distance, or there's maybe methane rain falling that erodes the surface and exposes the water ice that makes up a lot of Titan.
Þannig sáu Rússar árið 1959 í hillingum fyrir sér fyrstu sporin á tunglinu í kjölfar þess að hafa skotið eldflaug þangað. Síðan þá hefur tunglið misst mikið af aðdráttarafli sínu í augum jarðarbúa. Árið 1975 setti Dr. William Hartmann fyrstur fram þá tilgátu, sem nú almennt viðurkennd, að tunglið hefði myndast í árekstri jarðar og reikistjörnu á stærð við Mars. Og þótt þetta steinbarn á himni sé ekki eins líflegt og Mars og Títan, þótt það sé engin lofthjúpur, ekkert veður, kann fæðing þess að hafa skipt sköpum fyrir loftslag á jörðunni og þar með lífið.
We grew up in our culture on Earth with the idea that somehow the Earth is this stable background of all human activity, and there's the line in Shakespeare about all the world is a stage and we're just players on the stage. So we think we're running around, but the Earth has been constant in the background. Well, we go to Mars, and what do we see but a frozen, dry planet, but it has riverbeds on it. So water has been running on Mars in the past, and of course we come back to Earth and we're concerned about greenhouse effect, industrial effects on the Earth, and in the longer term what caused the ice ages. So the planet is not a permanent stage, the planet is some kind of fluctuating stage. By going to Mars and trying to understand why its past environment was different than it is today, it may teach us a lot about the Earth's history of climate. The Earth, because of its moon, is stabilized in a certain sense. The Earth is turning on its axis. The presence of the moon out there stabilizes the position of that axis, which makes our seasons quite uniform and predictable. But on Mars, there's no moon, no large moon, two little tiny moons, but they have very little effect like this. So Mars doesn't have that stabilizer. Calculations have shown that the axial tilt of Mars can go from near zero to maybe as much as 45 degrees, which means that at different times in the ancient history of Mars, it has had very different seasonal patterns. And you can imagine Mars, like the Earth, has a polar ice cap at the North Pole and the South Pole. So here's this polar ice cap now being tilted 45 degrees toward the sun. All of the ice could burn off of one polar cap in the summertime and try to pass through the atmosphere and go to the winter polar cap. And so the moon turns out to be a key to stabilizing planetary climates. And does that mean maybe the Earth is more unique in the universe than we thought? Maybe even though life tries to get started on many, many planets in the universe, the pattern of climate may be so irregular on other planets that life becomes extinct again and can't get a foothold and evolve into intelligence. And maybe it's only on the Earth because of our moon that life can evolve into intelligence.
Því kann svo að vera að án tunglsins hefði enginn á jörðunni nokkur tíman velt vöngum yfir muninum á því að vera eða ekki vera. Andstætt Píþeasi var írski munkurinn Sankti Brendan ekki með tunglið á heilanum. Engu að síður var hann klár í kollinum. Gígurinn á höfði hans var ekki af völdum loftsteins, heldur Jesú Krists. Í stað tunglsins sveif heilagur andi yfir vötnunum sem hann sigldi í. Því var hann ekki í neinum vandræðum með að túlka það sem fyrir augu bar þegar hann fór á sömu slóðir og Píþeas á 7. öld. Kristin guðfræði átti svör við öllu. Í sögu Sankti Brendans sagt frá því þegar munkarnir nálguðust dularfulla eyju þar sem óvættir réðu ríkjum. Þarna var hrjóstrugt að lítast, engin gróður en mikil eldvirkni. Hún stafaði frá íbúum eyjarinnar sem voru ógeðfelldir járnsmiðir. Munkarnir sáu einn þeirra koma úr smiðju sinni. Þegar hann sá þjóna Krists, gargaði hann að þeim ókvæðisorðum. Fleiri járnsmiðir birtust og hentu gjalli í átt að báti munkanna. Munkarnir forðuðu sér á brott, en fnykurinn frá þessari hryllilegu eyju fylgdi þeim í marga daga. Nútímamönnum þykir líklegra að Sankti Brendan og hinir munkarnir hafi séð eldgos á Íslandi en járnsmiði í þjónustu djöfulsins. Samt dreymir marga enn þann dag í dag að sjá mannlega skírskotun í fyrirbrigðum náttúrunnar. Fólk setur upp silkihanska til að flytja álfasteina og umgengst þannig náttúruna af varkárri háttvísi. Á álfaslóðum fólki bent á huldufólk á þönum.
Já, þarna einn. Þarna hérna. Þarna hleypur einn.
Hvað? Ég sé ekki neitt þarna.
Það ekki núna, Þarna hérna. Já, mjög ábyrgðarlegt.
Þótt álfar lifi góðu lífi, hafa þeir englar og púkar sem Sankti Brendan taldi sig sjá horfið af sjónarsviðinu og geimverur komið í þeirra stað. Nýir álfaklettar hafa uppgötvast og óþekkt nátttröll séð dagsins ljós á rauðu plánetunni. Árið 1976 barst myndin af hinu fræga andliti á Mars frá geimfari á braut plánetuna. Áhugamenn fljúgandi furðuhluti töldu þennan ójarneska leirfinn handaverk framandi listamanna. Þótt nýlegar myndir sanni að andlitsmyndin stafaði á sínum tíma af leik, ljós og skugga, enn til fólk sem fullyrðir að andlitið sé sönnun tilvist geimvera. Í augum svonefndra geimlistamanna vísindaleg vitneskja pláneturnar hins vegar ekki ásteytingarsteinn, heldur stökkpallur. Og þar láta þeir hrífast af svipuðum klettum og þjóðtrúin taldi bústað álfa. Þeir leitast við að gæða fjarlægt grjót lífi með fulltingi listarinnar. Í þeirra augum listamaðurinn jafnframt landkönnuður.
As a space artist, I like to come to a place like Iceland where you can see nature in raw form. It's not covered by a lot of green stuff. You can see how the rocks have come out of the ground and eroded into talus slopes and been cut by the rivers. And this is the form of nature that the artist uses in astronomical art, because in so many other worlds, this is what we will see. We're not going to see a place that's full of trees. We're going to see a place that's full of rocks that have been sculpted by the wind and by ice and maybe by rain and rivers. So a place like this shows me a glimpse of another world.
Á fjarlægum himinhnöttum hittir listin stundum betur naglan á höfuðið en sjálf vísindin.
As I paint and think about planets and then compare it to my scientific work, I realize more and more that we scientists think that we're dealing with all of reality, but we're really dealing only with a little part of reality, and we tend to be dealing with the part that we can measure. And in fact, if you really study astronomy, you begin to realize that astronomers are measuring things about the universe that simply correspond to the kind of instruments that we have. So if we have an instrument that measures the colors of something, we go out and measure colors. We express those colors in terms of numbers, actually. A number of astronomers, including myself, have measured the colors of asteroids, and I have gone to meetings where I myself have stood up and reported some of these colors as a number. You know, the difference between blue minus red is 0.357 magnitudes. Well, you go up and ask these astronomers, what color is that? Is that a kind of a reddish brown? We know it's reddish, there's more red light than blue light, but is it a bright red? Is it a reddish brown? Is it the color of chocolate? What is it? No one knows. And to me, this is very strange because we go out and spend part of our career measuring this quality, and yet no one takes the step of making it correspond to human experience.
I have always loved science, I've loved astronomy, but when I do math, my brain turns to mush, and so I had to pursue the arts rather than the pure sciences. But astronomical art is a nice hybrid of science and the arts. It's always inspiring to me to watch this mix and watch what happens as one studies the science of a place and then puts it into paint. So that other people can understand and be in awe of the power of nature in the universe. No one has walked around on the surface of another world yet except for the moon. We haven't seen Mars, we haven't seen Triton up close, but the space artist can bring these things to the human level.
Getur fjarstýrð myndavél komið mannlegu sjónarhorni til skila? Hvorki fyrr né síðar hafa jafn margir jarðarbúar skoðað samtímis ljósmyndir af sömu áfergju og þegar myndir Pathfinder geimfarsins frá Mars bárust til jarðar. Þarna var myndavélin sem Peter Smith hannaði skyndilega ígildi listamannsins.
I took some of the design ideas from our Huygens camera, the detectors and some of the lenses, and put them together into a Martian camera. And the idea of this camera was to be about a human height above the surface, so we had a mast that would raise it up, and to have two eyes, just like we do, a little wider spaced, and to be able to look around on the surface on a neck and that you could tilt up and down and provide a human perspective of what it's like to stand on Mars. And so I think a lot of the attraction of those images is that you had the feeling from those pictures that you could just kind of walk off into that landscape because it's the view that we're used to seeing when we explore the Earth.
Margir telja að á svipaðan hátt og öskulagarannsóknir á Íslandi gera kleift að tímasetja jarðsögu Íslands, búi pólarnir á Mars yfir upplýsingum sem nái allt til upphafs sólkerfisins. Þannig gæti Mars fyllt upp í eyðurnar á jarðsögu okkar heimanattar.
If you can dig and study the layers, you can learn about, say, the last, I don't know, few 100,000 years of climate history on Mars. Maybe even longer, maybe millions of years of history. So there's kind of a lot of excitement in going back to the poles, but it's not easy to get there. It's not the easiest place to land. And if you have solar cells, which is what we have now, you can only land there in the summer. So we had a good opportunity with Polar Lander. We landed at minus 76 degrees latitude, which on the Earth would be inside of Antarctica. But as you know, we didn't survive. But we'd like to try again, yes.
Many of the glaciers in Iceland exhibit beautiful layered terrain. There's layers of light and dark areas where there has been ice overlain by volcanic dust. Same kind of thing happens on Mars. There are seasonal dust storms that cover the ice caps with the red-orange dust of Mars. Then the winter comes and covers that with ice, and as you get many layers built up, the wind comes and sculpts a natural sculpture which leaves this beautiful layered terrain. We go to glaciers like Vatnajökull and Tungnafellsjökull to see these layers so that we can understand better what the Martian polar caps look like up close. And this, in fact, is what I have done in this painting. This painting is based on Tungnafellsjökull and that layered terrain. I've also used Icelandic forms for other paintings depicting Mars in ancient times where there may have been oceans, glaciers, icebergs breaking off into lakes that are left in some of the impact basins that we see today, as in this painting.
There's an interesting example of the play of light in the shadows of rocks that comes up on Mars compared to the Earth. Now, on the Earth, let's particularly think about a snow scene. We have white snow, we have a rock. The rock is casting a shadow on the snow, and the light coming into that shadow is coming from the blue sky in this direction. So it's blue. And the Impressionists discovered this, and in fact, it's become completely a tradition to render snow with blue shadows because of this blue light falling into the shadows. On Mars, the sky is pink, so the light falling into a shadow on snow on Mars would actually be pinkish. And I've actually begun to try to do this in some paintings, but it's a very strange thing to paint a snow scene with pink shadows, and you think this can't be right, this doesn't even look like snow. But in fact, if you put it under a pink sky, it begins to look right.
Þegar menn sjá heiminn í nýju ljósi, nýjum lit, sjá þeir jafnframt skuggahliðarnar á þeirri veröld sem þeir yfirgáfu, eins og landnámsmenn á Íslandi fyrir 11 öldum.
Humanity needs places where it can go where the rules haven't been written yet. The first Icelanders came here to get away from the king of Norway, and they were able to try a social experiment. They set up the Althing, the world's first democratic government. Similarly, we have before us right now new worlds in space where people can make their own rules, where people in the future will have a chance to be not just the inhabitants of their world, but the makers of it. And really the only place where you can have the full freedom to do that is in a place that's empty, a place that's a tabula rasa, a place that's a blank slate, a place that Iceland once was and a place that Mars is today.
Á Þingvöllum, þar sem nýji heimurinn fjarlægist þann gamla, við hæfi að minnast þess að sé vilji fyrir hendi Mars aðeins steinsnar í burtu.
We stand on harsh red rocky soil in a silence so profound, envisioning what we'll create upon